Okay. Are you recording?
Okay. In 1 second. Let me just look at the chat and then I'm ready to record.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Jester Prince. Today we're going to be talking about Nisekoi. It's our first harem anime, which honestly did not go that bad. I was expecting it to be absolute garbage.
There was a scene where all the 14-year-olds in the bathhouse fondled each other and said, "Oh my God, your boobs are so big."
Yeah, it was
and
pretty
then
good.
The other one was like,
Okay, what's your point? What's the point you're trying to make?
um,
Come on, you like that.
you, you like it,
Come
don't you,
on.
Squidward?
Come on.
Well, I gotta say, despite never watching any animes, I said for many years that I don't like anime, and then I watched 2 or 3 pretty good animes, and then I saw this anime, and I didn't like it, and so my initial prejudice was correct, and I should never have watched anime ever.
So true.
Is what I think about Nisekoi. What do you think about Nisekoi?
No,
Season 1?
I think overall it's obviously a mid show, but as far as harems go, this was definitely like honestly probably as good as it could have gotten, like the concept. And so I mean at least there was that. It had some funny moments. It had
Why,
some
why
garbage
was it
moments.
why was it mid?
Why was it mid? Because nothing profound or interesting ever happened. Um, there was no catharsis
I
at the
think it
end.
was mid because towards the end of the season they just stopped texturing the side characters.
Okay, that is not why it was mid. Although that was
I
pretty
mean,
funny.
there is one thing to have basic bland looking side characters. There is another to use the like JPEG dead screen please ignore background.
I don't think it was a problem. I don't really care about. Like, I
It
don't
was
need
just
to
kind
see
of
the
like,
crowd. I don't need to see a beautifully animated crowd to think an anime is good.
I guess it just felt lazy.
I mean, yeah,
Especially
this
because
is
it
like
only
it's like the bargain bin anime right here. So
especially because like it only started happening towards the end of the show and like
it only
the
happened.
sort
It
of
only
like
happened in the like summer festival episode where they had to draw
yeah.
crowd.
But also the single frame cutaways that they would do where it's just like like a 2 frame animation, like those became more common as time went on. So I just you're
Okay, I
right.
did not
Like
really notice that.
I don't need a harem anime to like be visually beautiful.
Oh,
But when I
I
see
need those
like
girls to be visually beautiful as shit.
wait, the girls need to be visually beautiful, but the rest of the show doesn't need to be visually beautiful. But just like seeing it like become more and more prevalent as time went on just made me feel like it was just laziness. Whereas like if it was there from the beginning, like it's kind of like how Spy X Family was. I only say that because I just watched some of it. I got caught up with it today. Like they from day one they were doing like the lazy cutaways. So it feels less insulting than like when you don't at the beginning and then like towards the end that's just like half your show.
Yeah, I didn't really notice that, but hey, that's a valid criticism.
I I'm just it's nothing special, but like I'm not going to pretend that every American TV show is special. I feel like we just watched like a bad show.
Okay. So so why didn't you like it from an actual like story material perspective?
Man, just like nothing happened.
That is true.
Here's the thing. I don't like. I don't want to. My whole thing is like even though I meme, I'm not going to write off anime. I'm not going to. I have a feeling that harem as a genre is just not going to be a thing that I roll with, because the plot just felt contrived and dumb. Not even like the episode plots, just the whole idea of like I made a promise to there's a chosen girl and that all these other girls are going to show up. Like it did nothing for me. It seemed contrived. It seemed dumb. I don't like shows where the plot is like with the plot. I said this when we started watching. Like I don't like shows where the entire conflict of the show could be resolved if characters could just like get a sentence out. And the universe just had to come up with like increasingly contrived reasons for like and then this character bursts through the screen and then like someone throws a baseball through the window and then I'm like, bro, could you not just be like, oh damn, that baseball just for the window, by the way, Onodera, Chitoge and I are doing this thing to maintain peace between East and West Berlin, and whatever. And also, I like you.
Yeah.
And also, do you have the key that unlocks my little amulet? But also, who gives a shit about the fact that a key unlocks your amulet? That's how.
Actually, I was pretty invested in that until it was revealed that there were like 4 keys and one of them broke. That's it.
But also, like, bro, you're gonna make like.
Yeah, and Harems. Yeah, go ahead.
There was an American movie I saw a long time ago, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was like, it had the same thing where like this guy and this girl had like a fun time together, and then like they're at like a carnival, and then he like breaks the coin in half, and then gives it to the girl, and he's like, so we can always remember. And then the girl just like keeps the coin with her forever, and then finds the guy who has the other part of the coin, and they like put it together, and they're like, oh my god, you were him. And I get the idea of like predestined love, but I don't like bro. There was when I was like 5 years old, I had a great time with this one kid, and then like we were like best friends for like a couple days at this summer camp, and then he left, and I never saw him again. And then Jake, our friend, like ran into him like a month ago. And he was like, and I was like, oh my God, it was him. He's like, yeah. And like, I went to get his number, and then he opened his phone up, and it was like a Confederate flag on the screen. Like,
okay.
That does nothing for me.
I was expecting the story to go somewhere else, but okay.
like all this predestined stuff. People change, things change. I don't. Why do you? Who cares if you made a promise to her when you were 10? Now, promised love and divine intervention and stuff. I know that's what the show is talking about.
Yeah, honestly, the person who was really invested in the promised love from her childhood thing the whole time was Onodera, right? Because the whole time, from the very beginning, we thought that she was the promised girl, and
I didn't.
she was always the one that was was aware of this from the beginning, and was kind of going after him, and that feeling kind of manifested in some pretty like, I don't know. It felt like her feelings were kind of obsessive. Did you get that feeling?
I mean, I think Barika is the obsessive one.
Okay, that is very true. That's very true.
But she was sort of the you wrote down when you were sort of breaking these characters into archetypes. You wrote down that she was the childhood best friend,
right?
And I mean, that's the deal with the childhood best friend, right? Is that it seems like this milquetoast main character's friendship that looks like unfulfilling every time that we see it on screen is like what brings life into their souls, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's like Doki Doki Literature Club, which is the first piece of harem I had ever.
It's a harem? I didn't know
that. I think it is, because there's like 4 girls and they all like you. I don't know what it is.
Very true.
It's probably. I don't think it's a harem. I think it's a.
Honestly, ReZero's a harem.
ReZero was kind of a harem. What does he have that I don't? What I will say about like the predestined love is that, and now we only watched season 1, so maybe in further seasons it'll go back to being like, oh no, he has to end up with the girl who was the promise. But I think that, to give it some credit, you said you stopped being invested in like the locket and the key once it went off the rails. Yeah. That's actually, I want to give it credit for that, because I think it's talking about how if you look for a sign, you'll start seeing signs everywhere.
That's kind of true.
And so I think having he was like, all I need to find is the girl with the key. And then to have every single girl have like a claim at the key. Now, you could say it's just a contrived way to make there be more tension, because all he could do is be like, which one of you has a key? And the one who has it, he'll be like, okay, we'll get married. So they have to be like, well, I all have a key, to keep it like mysterious.
Yeah, but honestly, I think you're kind of right that it was kind of critiquing the childhood friend idea, and especially from like Raku's perspective, because he was also in love with Onodera the entire time, until he started getting interested in these other girls, and he kind of realized that like, oh wait, my relationship with like Kirisaki, for example, is kind of more fulfilling, because like we're actually friends instead of just like this girl I have a crush on from a long time ago.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly that. Like on a meta level, it's like, trying to live your life to fulfill some divine prophecy, you miss sort of the forest for the trees. And then
right.
When the girls show up and sort of break that open, you start to see some like legitimate, where even, because after Chitoge shows up, you start to see him form an actual relationship with like Onodera.
Right, that's true.
And like actually talk to her, which I know is because it's the show, so now they have to have character development. But again, in this meta sense, you say once he gets smacked upside the head, can no longer just be like, well, I have to find the girl with the key. He starts to treat this other woman like a human.
So just going down the list of these harem character archetypes, they're very common. We have the childhood friend in Onodera, and then we have another very major harem archetype, probably the most famous across like all of anime, which is the tsundere. Have you heard that word before?
I only know these terms from Yanderes Simulator. Is that the one where she she hates him because she's like, it's not like I like you, Baka?
Yeah, that's a tsundere. So the tsundere, the basic idea behind the tsundere is that it's someone who's really cold at the beginning, and kind of aggressive and mean. But slowly over the course of the show, they'll open themselves up to the main character and reveal like a soft inside, hard on the outside, soft on the inside. That's the basic idea behind the tsundere. And I thought this was done in a pretty cool way in Nisekoi, because in the beginning, Chitoge is not only presented as very aggressive and cold, she's also presented as smart and like capable and sociable and stuff, apart from Raku. And so I like the way that the show broke this down, not just breaking down the like cold, mean side of the tsundere, but also like the flashy, beautiful, competent side of the tsundere, because only in episode 4, Chitoge is having problems on her own, like making friends and stuff. And I thought that it was really cool that the show made that a moment of character development between her and Raku, and also just exposing that tsunderes are not perfect, as well as not just cold. And so I thought that was very effective, and it was a cool manifestation of the tsundere archetype. What did you think of it?
Why do you think like the tsundere archetype exists?
One reason I can definitely tell you is because of Evangelion. One of the characters is like a textbook tsundere, and just like copying that, and also other shows from the time. It's kind of archetype that's been floating around. But as for why that archetype is popular in the first place, I think that it's a very easy way to make you attached to a character, because they start out. It takes someone who feels invulnerable and makes them vulnerable, exposes all their vulnerabilities, and so by the end of the show, you're very attached to them. You're very emotionally invested in them, just by fiat of the fact that all of their vulnerabilities have been exposed in order to break down their tsundere shell. And so it's just kind of like an easy textbook way to achieve that emotional attachment to a character.
All right. That one makes sense. I mean I think there's a multiplicity. I think it'd be unfair to say, well, everyone likes tsunderes because of this exact reason. I know some people like tsunderes because of like step on me.
Yeah.
But when I was like watching it, I kind of got this vibe that it's a really easy way to sort of fulfill that fantasy of wanting to like break down someone's walls, like not just see it happen because it's satisfying, but like.
I think part of that fantasy in this show also comes from the fact that like the tsundere is also portrayed as perfect and beautiful in that way, like breaking.
But like you know how like in the West, like the manic pixie dream girl is like a popular archetype. I mean that's the name, but like it's men respond to this idea of there being like of having some. Now saying men respond to being able to control women sounds way more critical theory than I want to be. But
I think it's honestly pretty true. It's pretty true.
But that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's like a tsundere is fulfilling like the male fantasy of you see the girl who's dark and aloof and alone or whatever, and you want to be able to like walk over there and be like
Well, I don't think
how do you do, madam?
Yeah.
And not dark alone, but that sort of same thing. We like the idea of being able to sort of break down the walls, and that we.
It's like men like the idea of climbing the highest mountain. I think that's what.
Yeah, that control in our lives was how I was going to say it was. When people are just irrationally sort of away to us, we don't like it. We like sort of being able to say, well, you're doing this, but I can sort of make you come around, and it's a. I think it's an easy way to get that gratification, but I mean, that's
Yeah.
I hate harem anime. It appeals to the male fantasy.
But
Chitoge,
but even as a even as a character type, it's pretty common across all of anime because it's just pretty easy way to spur on that emotional attachment.
Easy is certainly a thing. I mean, I think Tsunderes are kind of a caricature. That's kind of why I asked, like, why are they so popular? Because it feels like a complete and utter, like, you know, hell, I've known tsundere-like people, but they're not like that.
So I feel like it's kind of a shame that Tsugumi and Marika didn't get a lot of screen time. I felt like they were kind of just there to create drama and to like have like 2 jokes. But they were manifestations of other harem archetypes. Tsugumi was a manifestation of this like tomboyish, athletic girl. Sometimes if I hear the word Gengki girl used to describe that. Very like outgoing and optimistic, although she wasn't very outgoing. But she was kind of optimistic and also very tomboyish and athletic. I don't really know what to say about her because I mean I can't really analyze Tsugumi. There was no character there. Do you have any thoughts about Tsugumi? I'm not sure what to say, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think she was kind of an interesting character, actually.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, minus the, one, it gives us the easy character trope of, I thought you were a guy. No, I'm a girl.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. That was kind of funny.
But my one takeaway from the harem genre is that it's about sort of relationships with, like, femininity and stuff.
Is that what's about?
Well, because I mean, in a weird way. But
this show was actually about it, but I don't think that's common.
I mean, all these archetypes are some sort of take on femininity. Whether it's the tsundere, who it's she's sort of being cold but she's perfect and she just sort of needs to have those walls broken down, or whether it's the the childhood best friend who's the sort of, beautiful but doesn't know it type of thing. Or this one where it's the sort of, as if femininity is something that sort of has to be broken out, and that is sort of the ideal state for a woman to be in, and that when she is not showing that, her like character isn't fully developed, and that she needs to have the tomboyish look taken off of her so that she shows her big bazongas, and then that's her character development. Now, I don't think that's necessarily super insightful and smart, but seeing that, I really understood a lot of like why people watch characters like this, because I'd never really seen that arc play out so quickly. What I'm saying is the character was so shoddily written that I understand why anime fans like them. I'm sorry.
I think you're kind of right. I think you're kind of right about that.
I'm gonna get shit for what I say.
You're doing well so far. You haven't stepped on that many toes.
Listen, I was really open-minded to a bunch of anime, so everyone please give me this one. I'm going to be a dick about this one. Yeah. So I mean that's what I saw was that character development for her was getting the big bazongas, showing off some of that stomach, being a little sexy, and I think it kind of says a lot about how harem animes are about sort of coaxing different types of femininity out of these different female character archetypes.
Also, what I think was kind of a pussy move was not making her properly gay. She was like she acted kind of gay towards Kirisaki in the beginning. Yeah, but
queer coded, I believe, is the term that the Gen Z kids are using these days.
The kids are using these days. So true.
I don't know what queer coded means. You telling me it queer coded this video game?
She's queer coded because she has short hair. Honestly, that's what that means. But no. She then she was just like falls for Raku, and I thought it has to happen because we need harem drama, but it's also like. I don't know. I thought it was kind of lame.
The red herring character, where we have to make it more complicated.
Yeah, honestly, everything just red herrings. We're not allowed to have an actual plot line. Every plot line that happens is a red herring.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, that's why I'm like we're on so many levels of irony that there, because you're right when you have this thing where it's like, oh damn, he's like, Yanderes is the promise girl.
Right.
So that's obvious. So they have to be like, well, maybe she is, or maybe she isn't, but maybe she is, but maybe she isn't. You feel like, how many levels of Sicilian outsmarting are you on just to get away from the fact that he's like, yeah, this is the girl he made the promise to, but he actually loves Chitoge, or maybe he loves her, and that's the harem. But because that's just a love triangle, we got to have at least we have to have at least 3 women for the beach episode, because one has to go behind the other one and grab her boobs while the other one is ashamed.
Real. Honestly, that's just real. That's just what actually happens in real life. You know how many times I've seen that shit?
This is why women go to the bathroom in groups.
Okay, that is actually true. We've actually discovered something about human nature right here.
You know, I set out to make fun of the harem anime, but in reality, I found the absurdity of our own life.
Bro finally did the human herding patterns, figured out why.
So what kind of girl is Marika then?
So Marika is a pretty textbook yandere. I for the life of me cannot figure out why people like yanderes, but for some reason they're in every harem. You have this girl that just wants to kill the main character because she's so obsessed with him.
Wants to kill the main character?
Or will kill everyone else to obtain him. But yeah, sometimes it goes so far that she's like obsessed with him to the point where she just like wants to get him out of her life or something. So she could like have him to herself or something like that. I've seen that before.
Oh, well, that's
like an extreme version of the yandere arc.
No,
this was kind of a more mellow yandere who was just kind of on the side to say a bunch of weird shit.
Bro, it's so easy why people like that.
Why?
You know, for men
like being obsessed over.
Yeah, men like being obsessed over, and for maybe a man who's a little shy, a little reserved, a bit of a beta male, as the kids are saying as the kids are saying these days.
Beta is queer coded.
You know, you want to kind of be dominated by a woman. You want this this woman who is strong and can fuck you up and can fuck everyone else up, but also like is submissive and just wants to do what you want. It's like kind of it's like the perfect
that's
archetype
kind of true.
for
That's
anyone
actually
like
kind of
that.
true.
You know, you just it's that matrix.
I can see why people would like it.
Can kill you, won't. Can kill you, will. You know, why do you?
It would help if she was hot.
Why do you think guys like simp after Jinx?
I simp for Jinx.
But yeah, I mean, so that's my thesis. Having watched one harem episode, having watched one harem anime, one season of one harem anime, I can make a very informed decision, which is that harem animes really like different ways that the main character can turn the woman into a hamana type of biatch.
Hamana. So let's talk about the main character.
The main character.
The main character, Raku. He was kind of...
you know who had a nicer Raku?
Usually main characters in harem animes are like really blank slate, like just self-projection characters. Yeah, he was because you want
to project on them. I think he was a little more than that, only because he had the promise thing. Just because, like, you know, that means he has his own motivation.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just like he's going to sit back and let the women throw themselves at him. He's actually trying to do something. So I still think he's a complete blank slate. I would push back against if you were to say, like, Raku was a complete character and not just fodder for the male audience to relate with. But I think the reason why he feels like he has more going on is because, like, he actually does have a desire other than getting his dick wet.
And, you know, he actually does, like, make certain decisions at some points, like, to help the girls, as opposed to just letting the girls fall all over him all the time. You know, whenever the girls have meaningful character development, it's usually because he made a step forward in their relationship on his own terms. And so he was a bit more of a go-getter than the average, like, harem protagonist, who's just, like, usually completely oblivious. Like, he was actually, like, he knew what he wanted, and so he was kind of doing things towards what he wanted, despite the fact that he was not interesting in really any meaningful way. But he was at least a character, as opposed to what usually happens. But yeah,
I guess he was a character. But one thing I want to talk about is, like, why these MCs, I know the easy answer is, well, you got to make the story longer, but why these MCs, like, can't confess to a woman.
Gotta make the story longer.
Why do they run from? It's like harem animes are like the ultimate sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet it seems like the main characters are almost like repulsed by sex. Like, bro ends up in the bathhouse and he's like, oh my god, God, Jesus Christ! Oh my God,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oh my God,
He's like, God, I have to get out of this bathhouse full of naked women. What am I ever gonna do?
Yeah, and listen, I'm not advocating. I think you should do that because like that's the right thing to do. But if I end up in a bathhouse, I'd be like, I better leave. I don't want to look at these women. Women are gross. But he's like freaking out at the idea of sex when this whole show is about like all these people who want to sex him. I wish I had a camera because my hand gestures are on point. I see my reflection in the window. We got to start putting cameras on each other. No, we really got to start putting cameras on each other because I got some.
I'll put a camera on you if you know what I mean.
I got a colonoscopy later this week.
Do not say that. Not necessary.
Everyone, 10 subs and I'll release my colonoscopy. No, but yeah. So I mean, I want to know why you think why are harem protagonists like sex repulsed?
I think one part of it is just as the protagonist, like it's kind of the target audience and also the protagonist is like high school, middle school boys, and so like it's not going to it's going to do everything it can possibly do to not go past the line of just like naked woman, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think
there are some pervert characters.
It is like a show by show thing. Like there are harems that will go further, and then you can take another step and go into hentai. Like there is a spectrum, and this is definitely on like the super anti-sex side of the spectrum.
You are right, but I guess even the little bit I've seen of the like the sort of perverted harem characters, it's still like this weird mangled relationship with sex. Like I just think it's weird that harem animes have to sort of inherently have this somehow broken attitude towards like sexual relationships.
Like it's like a facade of childishness, or rather the other way around. Like they are childish, and there's a facade of maturity in the form of nudity and the harem topics. But that's I've always sort of said that like teenage boys like anime because they like edgy things like naked women and gore and action stuff, and like once you properly mature, you realize that like that's kind of like edgy things like that are like not that's not what makes things mature, right? That's just what young people think is mature, and so that's what I think this show is doing, and like what the genre kind of caters to is the idea.
And maybe that's it. I mean, like it's the in real life, the immature guy can't settle down because the prospect of being with women is more exciting than the prospect of like having a fulfilling relationship with one woman.
Right. And
so part of maturing is learning to be like, I could go to a bar or a party and get drunk and then, bed this chick. But what I would rather do is be in it for the long haul with this one guy or girl that I like.
Right.
And so maybe when you say sort of this childish facade, maybe that's why the harem animes are, sex repulsed because hey, kids are like that. They're like, ew, sex.
The question is like, is it a childish facade or is it an adult facade over the childish?
I like the idea that it's childish because the thing that I was thinking of is I'm remembering that I think it's an H Bomber Guy video where he talks about like alpha males. Or like pickup artists, and he reviews like their chapters about sex because like every like weird pickup artist book will have a chapter about sex itself.
Okay.
And those chapters always describe sex with this like derision. Like one thing that sticks in my mind is like it's just a man sticking his bulbous member into a woman's flesh for 10 minutes and then leaving with the feeling of it's like it's weird that the approach and that the going after the women is the thing that we write so many books about, and then when it's time for the sex we're like, ew, that's gross.
That's kind of true.
And so your thing makes more sense because that always like has sort of an associated anger with talking about women, and when I see harem animes I don't really see that same pickup artist anger where like you're going after women, but you also kind of hate them. Whereas this is like the guy's going after women because he likes women, or doesn't like women, but like is overcome by some sort of feeling of liking this thing. So I think you're right. It is sort of a childhood thing.
So I think it does tie into the broader idea in the show of everyone's kind of attached to their childhood and these childhood promises they made, and everyone's kind of like really stuck in adolescence. I think that's an interesting idea in the show. I'm not sure anything was ever done with it, or there's any commentary in the show about that, but it's kind of true. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if whoever wrote this, I think it was a manga originally, whoever wrote this manga is kind of I don't know, thinks about adolescence a lot. It seems like
that's why he do be thinking about adolescence a lot, if you know what I mean.
I said adolescence, not adolescents.
And so I think that's why, like, in sort of the harem story arc, like, the maturity is the confession and the kiss, because, like, once we drop the chasing after the women, even though I think most people will talk about it as, oh, well, he just got the girl. Really, I think if you want to be a little more lucid in your interpretation, you say that this is his moment. This is the harem protag's moment of maturity, when they give up the chase and sort of like learn to say no, and just learn to pick a woman and give up the thrill of the game for the actual mature human companionship. A few things about sort of chasing a bunch of women.
Why would you say this? Yes, this definitely ties into. Oh, never mind. We already talked about that. So, okay, one thing I really wanted to talk about was, there are a lot of naked women in the anime, and it's very much a feature of the genre, and honestly, like, fan service is kind of a feature of anime as a whole, especially like sexual fan service. Like when anime fans talk about fan service, they always mean the sexual aspect of that, because that's just like it's so common in anime.
I only recently so I recently bought the Skyrim Anniversary Edition, or Anniversary Expansion, which is just like a bunch of like modded content that they released officially, and I was like just reading some reviews for it just to see if I should get it or not. The reason I got it was because I play Skyrim on the Switch, and you can't get mods on the Switch, so like, yes, it's paid mods. Shut up. I have a Switch, okay? Fuck off.
I'm gonna believe you for this. I'm allowed to believe you for getting Skyrim.
But people were saying like, bro, who cares about just like who's gonna pay $20 for fan service? I was like, oh yeah, like a quest that's just like, hey, remember Morrowind is also fan service. And so that's I think I kind of get, just before we go into fan service, I've always been very anti-sexual fan service, because I don't know, I think it's fucking weird. I'm like, just go watch porn.
That is okay. Fair take. Like
Game of Thrones is just Lord of the Rings.
Well, you're right. The reason that sexual, the reason fan service works at all is because you're attached to the characters, and so you like fan service with those characters.
Okay,
so when you
just pretend that it's like Chitoge getting railed instead of like whatever.
Yeah, but then if it's fan service, then I don't have to pretend. It's real.
Okay, but you're already pretending that she likes you, so what's pretending that it's Chitoge in the first place?
So true. So true.
But I guess my point is, I've always been critical of sexual fan service, because I'm like, bro, like, why?
Okay, it's fair.
But it's fair. I realize I shouldn't be critical of fan service, because when it's non-sexual fan service, I'm all for it. I'm like, oh, hey, bro, I loved in Mario Odyssey when you could get the Mario 64 costume and then you just went to Mario 64. That was just complete fan service. And I remember people criticizing Mario Odyssey a little bit. It was dumb to criticize him for that, but being like, this game was just like, the end of the game was just fan service. It was just going to Peach's castle. I was like, oh my God, bro, I know, I love it so much. Like, I feel like those like Nintendo soy boys who are always like, oh my God, Banjo-Kazooie and Smash, this game that was from 20 years ago. That's fan service, and like that's fine. So starting this off, I have been converted to liking fan service. However, I still think that sexual fan service is weird as shit.
I strongly disagree that fan service is good. I hate fan service personally. It is cool if you are a fan, but from like a strictly narrative perspective, it can only do harm. Because in a video game, it's different. Like, you can have things that are not part of the narrative, and they're just like fun. Mm-hmm. Like, video games are different. They're a different art form because they're a lot of their main goal is for entertainment. Like, it's not to carry a story. Whereas in a show or a movie, you're going to have the main point being to carry a narrative. And fan service gets in the way of carrying a narrative because you're shoehorning in things that are not directly related to the narrative for the purpose of pleasing the fans.
I feel you. I think sort of we have discussions out of band a lot about like what moves art forward, and I talk a lot about how sort of the mainstream will never create the next art because the mainstream just iterates over itself, and the underground is always sort of what comes up with the new things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of applies here, where we say, fan service. I don't think fan service is bad, but I think fan service sort of will grind a story to a halt. If we watch shows sometimes to be happy, and if fan service make me happy, then like fan service good is sort of my caveman level take. But I do agree, like you just said, that fan service for the sake of it being fan service just kind of stops the plot and is like, hey,
right,
remember this? Remember, if we were talking about Family Guy earlier, it's like the criticism of modern Family Guy is that Family Guy is just like, hey Lois, check out this wacky thing I got. Also, remember the '90s?
Yeah.
Remember this movie. Remember Jason Statham? And you're like, bro,
exactly.
It grinds to a halt. The story stops. So I see what you mean when you talk about fan service.
And I think this applies equally well to sexual fan service. I don't think sexual fan service is that distinguished from normal fan service. Except in the sense that it kind of forces everyone to engage with it, whereas normal fan service can be kind of hidden away. But sexual fan service very much does the exact same thing in any narrative. If it's really pure fan service and it's not related to what's happening on screen, then it is going to completely just distract you from whatever is happening on screen, and that really harms the narrative. And there are plenty of examples of that in anime, and anime gets a lot of criticism for having just completely excessive sexual fan service in a lot of shows.
So what do you think about sexual fan service or fan service in general, that while not moving the story forward is either like earned or serves a point? Like what if in ReZero, like after there's like the whole like, I mean, you could say that that the kiss scene is fan service, but like, and I'm not going to be like, what if Amelia and Subaru started like raw dogging it, but like, what if in the next episode there was like a thing where Amelia gets dressed up in kind of like a revealing manner, and then Subaru, like, eyes fall out of his head. He's like, "Whoa, you're so pretty," but that's not like it's not moving the story forward, but it is sort of related to what was going on. Does that change your attitude towards fan service?
This is a legitimate point because actually throughout all of ReZero, Amelia wears a dress that has cleavage exposed. And that's just what her outfit is, no matter what. And that, in my mind, is completely fine. And in fact, like, is not technically fan service. Like, it is fan service, but it also very much serves a dual purpose of establishing her as the dreamy isekai fantasy girl that Subaru really wants. Because, listen, if she didn't have cleavage, we'd want her less.
I hate sex as much as the next guy, but like, I won't call just a promiscuous woman existing fan service. I think that she's promiscuous. She's fan service if she has nothing else going on in her life. If she's just like empty brained, look at my boobs. What I'm saying is like, what if there was like a fan servicey episode or fan servicey scene right after the confession where, Amelia looks kind of sexy and Subaru and all, it's just dedicated to being like, hey, look at this girl, but also it's coming after this. Does that change your attitude towards fan service dolls? Does earning it matter to you? Is my question.
The issue with that is like, it's technically earned, but we already in this specific example, the kiss provides all the catharsis we need for the like romantic subplot there, and so it would, like, from a very, very rigid technical perspective, be earned to have a scene like you're describing right after that, but it would not be cathartic. It would serve like no narrative purpose like the kiss does. So it's just I feel like that would be inappropriate in that case still. It is earned, like, at the very end, like in episode 25 of season 2, when Emilia has her pretty dress. I mean, it's not like super fan servicey, but you know, it's pretty, and Subaru takes a moment to point it out, and the camera takes a moment to rest on her, and you know, that is earned because that's the cathartic ending to the entire season. So you know, it just really depends on the context.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about this this Tumblr post that I see going around about like girl bossing too hard, too close to the Hays Code, where it's like couching like prude sexual fascism in like progressive language by being like, you know, it's problematic to have sex scenes on TV because the viewer isn't consenting to watch them, and like there should be no sex in movies. It should just be like a kiss and then implied sex. Okay. And so, but I mean, again, the existence of sex is not just fan service, but like that's why I'm saying, like, you know, we aren't saying there. I'm not saying, you know, well, I am saying that there should be no sex in movies, but I'm not saying that like the existence of promiscuity and sex is evil and bad and needs to be stamped out. I just kind of think that I'm like, bro, there's so much media for that. There is so much. You know, Rule 34 exists. You can see. You know, Chitoge on there. You know, I just like, why do we have to put it in the show and just make us wait for it? You know, it's lighthearted and it's fun. And it's kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the male audience, but it just feels it's boring to me. It's kind of like what you're saying.
That was actually Laura Mulvey's, like she was one of the originators of the male gaze theory back in the 70s, and that was something that she was critiquing movies for in her time. Or was it 70s or was it 50s? I forget. But that was something she was critiquing movies for in the time.
It was the 50s.
Like every time that there was a woman, she would claim that this is somehow doing what I described fan service to be doing, which is, you know, grinding the action to a halt. And she was very much in like the all sex is bad camp. And I think that's the real problem with her whole male gaze idea, which is that, you know, it's just as bad as fan service, and if you do it in a way that is not fan servicey, then it's quite fine. But I think it's very interesting in the context of the harem genre, because I feel like there is an argument that all of the fan service is necessary, even if it is complete fan service, because that's just the point of the genre. That's like the whole point of the entire show, is to just have a really raunchy, dumb narrative that shows you a bunch of naked women.
So I get that, but I guess my one counterpoint that I will, and I know that you disagree with like inherently with the point that you're making, so like I'm not arguing against you, but like my one counterpoint would be, you know, I went into Nisekoi being like, this is gonna suck. Harem animes are exactly what I don't like about anime. I don't like to see, you know, 14-year-olds in bikinis squeezing each other's tits. I know you do. But through this conversation, we were able to take this story so much further than just, hey, it's a raunchy time with a bunch of rah, 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 you know. We were able to talk about sort of, you know, views on adolescence and growing up and femininity and its, you know, relation to, you know, the male gaze and how men, you know, relate to stories and sort of, you know, why sort of types of people respond to types of character archetypes and and why we, you know, and why certain character archetypes are so successful and widespread. So I feel like to say, hey, well, harem anime is just to, you know, ogle women, is like, yeah, but it's not that hard to take the conversation further. So I feel like you're not doing yourself any favors. You're doing yourself a disservice by, you know, insisting that your harem just be naked, promiscuous women.
So do you think if there were no naked women at all in the show, no like random undress scenes, do you think it would be better?
You know, like fan service. There is a time when fan service can actively harm a story, and if it's like, you know, it's like completely out of character for it to happen, right? Like if. And I mean sexual fan service here. Like if there's a character who they aren't, you know, like say it follows a female main character, and the show really isn't about like her sexual life or anything like that. But then they have one episode where she just like is in a bikini and is all like, you know, all oiled up and shit, and you know, is in a bathhouse and whatever. That would actively harm the story, because like all of the sudden the writers are making her into someone that she's not.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, I completely agree
it's
with
like she doesn't care about sex, and oh no, wait, she does, and not anymore. That's when fan service, and but you can swap that out. You know, maybe it's a fan service where you know, like just something completely unrelated to the character that takes you out of the wider story. Yep. Here, this show's already about sex and femininity and attitude towards sex. So having fan service where the girls just look sexy isn't actually making the story worse. Now, it's making the story less enjoyable, but it's not actually harming the story itself.
I would argue that it is making the story worse. I think you're tiptoeing around, dancing around with words that are, you know, the same as.
Why do you?
Well, if it's less enjoyable, if it's portraying girls in ways that they should not be portrayed, and you know, I think you're kind of arguing that they should be portrayed that way. It's kind of in character, but I would say for Kirisaki in particular, whenever she's nude, it's kind of out of character. Yeah, and so you know that is.
Yeah, so I should clarify. What I'm really trying to draw the distinction between is I'm saying, like, you know, does it make the story worse or does it make the anime worse? I guess what I'm saying is like it's a non-effect on the story to me, but I think it does make the show worse. Yes, no, it feels like, you know, the pacing grinds to a halt.
I mean, that's the story though.
No, the story is more than that, because we just talked about all the stuff that the story can be more than. That's why I was making that whole point about how, you know, by just insisting that your harem animes make your pee-pee happy, you lock yourself out of so much interesting discussion. And I can see the people saying, why not both? But I'm saying, you know, no one's doing both.
I think they're really rather entwined together. I mean, you know,
no,
we only talked about all the harem archetypes because they existed.
Shut up, Monogatari. Shut up.
That is so true, but also not what we're talking about right now.
Shut up, Monogatari. Okay, I can. You have a massive throbbing kizu in your pants.
Wait, where did I write kizu again? I forget what I was writing that for.
You know, you're right though. Like, I guess what I'm saying is, you know, making my experience with the story less enjoyable to me is not the same as making the story worse. I think it makes
it is.
Yeah, I think it makes the characters worse, I guess.
I think you're being a pussy about this. I think we're saying the same thing, but you're being a pussy.
I'm
with
not
the words.
though, because I feel like, because I have said that, like, you know, the only reason why people like Tsunderes is because they're beta males who want to be dominated by a crazy bitch. So like I have shown in this conversation that I will say what needs to be said. I just think that, like, I think it's a non-effect on the story, but the problem is the more like non-starter neutral things you have in your story, the more bloated it feels. So that's a bad thing, but like, you know, it's not like harming the story itself. Like, it's not like I feel like the story is worse.
You mean like just the story? If you laid out the story beats, that's
like the existence of fan service isn't going to make it worse. It's just going to make the overall show less enjoyable.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It makes its delivery of the story and its rhetorical points worse.
Mm-hmm. But again, I think just talking about
whatever
that story. It's also just don't. Yeah, harem animes can be so much. Everything can be so much more if we let go of our obsession with fan service. I feel kind of legitimately bad for creators who feel like they're locked into needing to make stuff like this. Mm-hmm. That if they like it and it makes them money, like, sure, whatever. But I think about, you know, people who have said, you know, I tried to sort of humanize this character or make them not all about sex in, you know, various different shows, and sort of the backlash they get from fans because, like, no, this is my sex character, or, you know, Chun-Li has to have cleavage because that's why I play Street Fighter. You know, it's like, I kind of feel bad for you. And I know I'm being
Amelia's my sex character.
I feel like this is gonna be our most disliked video.
No. We've made very good points that everyone will agree with.
You're not in the same Twitter space as me.
No, I mean you're saying everything that I have felt. Like, I completely agree with everything you're saying about fan service and sexuality. It's definitely it's a tool that needs to be used correctly. Just like fan service. It's mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a very similar concept. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I hope that one day, inshallah, we can be freed from the bondage of sex.